coverage you can count on. This is On the Record with Barbara Gaucher.
Hello and welcome to On the Record. I'm Barbara Gaucher. Today we are talking about how to keep your family safe during these hot summer months. And we are joined today by Pam Fair, Director of Safe Kids Columbus for Piedmont Columbus Regional Hospital. Pam, thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, delighted to be here.
Good to have you. All right, summertime, often called trauma season when it comes to kids and safety, the period between Memorial Day and Labor Day, known as the 100 deadliest days of summer. Why is this period so dangerous, Pam?
First of all, kids are out of school, Barbara, and they are out having a good time, enjoying their summer. People take trips, they enjoy outings, and they do all sorts of activities in the summer. And so that is a great thing for families, but it does open the door for accidents and injuries throughout those days.
So let's talk about that. Why? What is the most common summer driving mistakes that families can make with their kids?
So the biggest thing we see upticks when we see parents who are not buckling, leading that as an example for their child, because one day they will drive.
Yeah.
And so they need to have that example. And then, of course, we see the preteens and the teens oftentimes are not using the seat belts. And then the next big uptick is the kids that are about 5 to 9 years old. They're using a seatbelt if they are using it, but those seat belts do not fit them properly, and they need a booster seat.
Yeah, and let's talk about booster seats and what is the current best practice for making sure your child is in the right seat and that they're strapped in correctly?
Sure. So booster seats have changed because they are now requiring that a child be at least 4 years old and at least 40 pounds. So back in the day, when my child was little, that wasn't the case. So they really want kids to be older and bigger before they transition to a booster seat. They want them to stay in a harness system before that in a regular car seat. So once they get to the booster, it's just important that you ink out every bit of the range that a booster seat will give you. So typically a lot of these booster seats, like the ones that we have here, will go to 120 pounds in weight and usually, taller than 4'9" in height. So it's amazing to me what a great thing this is, how easy it is to use, but how often they're not used. And kids are putting that seatbelt behind their back.
Oh yeah, you see that all the time. So what is the most common mistakes that parents make when it comes to getting their kids in booster seats and as well as in seat belts and car seats and all of that?
So the biggest things we see is when they're installed, they're not locking their seatbelts over. So a seatbelt system typically has to lock in place for your car seat. We as an adults, when we buckle up, we want that seatbelt to move back and forth with us so that we have a little bit of flexibility. But with a car seat, you don't want that to move about in the vehicle at all. So that seatbelt system has to be locked in place. And I check so many car seats where the seatbelt's not locked in any way.
Yeah.
So they're not ready for a crash. As far as putting the child in the harness system, we often see that the harness straps are too loose. You can pinch together the webbing off of the child's body, and that's very dangerous as well. Way too much movability during a crash, and movement is injury.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that harness is snug yet comfortable right up against their body.
Yeah.
So those are some of the big things that we see. And of course, kids riding, like I said, in seat belts where they just take the shoulder portion, the upper body portion of the seatbelt, and they place it behind their back. They've lost all of their protection when they do that.
I see a lot of adults do that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing, Pam, and we're looking at some of the things that you brought with us to show us, but I see we've got medications here. We've got what looks to me like candy, but these are actual medications. And this is another problem that you're seeing as far as kids getting a hold of medications and thinking that they are candy. Talk about that.
Absolutely. Our physicians are telling us that on average, we're seeing a child once a week, sometimes multiple kids a week, who are hospitalized because they have eaten an entire container of a medication in a gummy format.
Right.
So we see that whether it's melatonin, whether it's like a CBD or a marijuana type gummy, those things are absolutely dangerous if a child gets them in their hand because they can eat the entire container very quickly before they're noticed. And so that can have very serious effects for them on their little bodies if they eat that much at one time.
And so many of us take these gummy vitamins, or I see you've got melatonin, vitamin C, and they taste good. So a child can get a hold of this and think they're eating candy.
Absolutely. And the packaging For some of these that are medications versus candy, they look so similar. And to a child, it's all candy.
Yeah.
So the best thing that parents can do is put all of your medications up out of reach, out of sight. If you can, you want to lock it up.
Yeah.
Go ahead and lock it up, especially if you have older kids. Preteens, teens sometimes like to be adventurous and try things that could be very harmful for them. But if you lock it up, if it's dangerous medications like heart meds, things like that, you want to try to lock those away. But then also not leaving them open on a counter, on a nightstand, readily accessible, have them up and out of reach. And what you can do instead is create reminders on your phone so that that would remind you to take your daily medications instead of just having them out on the counter to serve as the reminder.
And you've got a nice little a safe here for medications.
Yes, it's a great way to lock up medications if you wanted to do that. They come in all sorts of sizes and depending on how many medications that you take.
Yeah.
And then you can make sure that these medications are locked away and you don't have to worry about a child getting them and gaining access. So that's a huge thing.
And it is amazing when we look at this packaging here, how the marijuana,
Yes.
CBD looks very similar to the kids packaging.
So there you go.
Yeah.
There you have it.
Yeah.
One is candy and one is not. And if you look at all the different size packaging, I mean, you've got some that are candy and some are not. And what we're seeing here is this one here is the medication. So you wouldn't
know it.
Wouldn't know it.
It looks like
if you were to look at it.
like a pack of
And
candy.
so, and people certainly they have legitimate uses or for whatever reason that they want to take these medications, and that's fine. It's just a matter of making sure that little ones don't gain access to that because it could cause them great harm.
Yeah, certainly can do that. All right, another big concern over this summer is pools and water safety. We have to do it because it's so hot here, but it can be very dangerous. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about that. We're talking with Pam Fair, Director of Safe Kids Columbus, and we'll be right back with more in just a moment. If you've got an interview you'd like to see, send me your idea at the email address below. Welcome back, and today we are talking about summer safety for kids and families, and we're joined by Pam Fair, Executive Director of Safe Kids Columbus at Piedmont Columbus Regional. Pam, so before the break, we were just talking about the summer heat and how it's a part of being in the South in the summer. Pools are such a big part of that because people want to cool down and kids love them, and the lakes, but pools and being out on the water can be very, very dangerous. Talk about how quickly a drowning can happen.
So drownings happen very quickly, a matter of seconds. And one thing that I want to notice, when we watch movies in Hollywood, they make a drowning seem like it's very splashy and very loud and help me, I'm drowning. None of that typically occurs. Drownings are very quiet. They're silent because your heart is beating so fast, you're out of breath, you can't talk. Kind of like if you've been running and you've run so hard you can't speak. The same when you're in the water. And so you go under and it's just a very quiet thing. So that is why using a protective device like a life jacket is so critical. Especially if you know your child cannot swim. But even if you can swim, especially if you're in open water, lakes, rivers, or we're a river in the Chattahoochee River community. So absolutely, if you're going to be around the water, it's just be safe than sorry. This thing takes just a matter of seconds to put on, but it can make a huge difference in saving someone's life.
What are the guidelines, Pam, when it comes to life vests, life jackets, in terms of how they should fit and what age? I mean, everybody should wear one, regardless of ages.
So we have life jacket loaner stations all around the city, and we can chat about that. But we try to keep every size available on the loaner stations and for families to sort of see and understand. We have life jackets for infants all the way through to a 3X. So everyone, there should be a life jacket that would fit. But there are some nuances. And so first thing is you want your life jacket to be fitted according to the person's weight. So you don't want to buy a life jacket like a winter coat where it's a size bigger and I'll wear it next year. Because a life jacket needs to stay on the body if you fall into the water. So typically what you'll do is you'll take the life jacket, and if you can pull it by the shoulders, and if it comes up and over pretty easy, that's too big. Or it's not snug enough. So they're made to sort of fit us sort of snug. And that's what you're after. And you want to make sure that it's a Coast Guard approved life jacket. Now, they have swimmers that you can use if you have an adult in the water with a child and the hands are right there on the child, they're present right there. That's a little different, but those are not made to be a saving device, but more of an assistance for floating while you're teaching to swim. So there's a difference there. So the Coast Guard approved life jacket, those are designed to keep the head above the water, which keep us breathing. That's the key. And they need to be properly fitted.
You know, my little niece and nephew, they're 6 and 7, and they come to our house to swim in the pool often, and they always wear the vests and the floaties. But I noticed they become very confident after a while. They really think that they can really swim well because they are able to, you know, how important are things like a brightly colored bathing suit and swim lessons and those things for kids to be a part of?
Absolutely, because if you can see them, it makes it all the easier. But if they're mixing in with the water, they have a blue, let's say they have a blue pool liner and a same blue bathing suit, that's going to be tough. And like we said, kids can drown so fast. So being able to see them instantly, teaching them, maybe perhaps even have a skill test in the pool. Say you think you can swim without your life jacket, let's take it off. Let's have them swim back and forth. Let's try that out so that we can make sure that they're good to go. But learning to swim, Barbara, is something that every human being really should do.
I'm always surprised how many people don't know how to swim.
Exactly.
Adults.
And males drown. Typically, they're the higher number of people who drown because they're much more adventurous. I always say us ladies don't like to get our hair wet. And that's probably why we don't drown as much. But males tend to drown because they are so adventurous. But it's so important that you teach them that water is, especially open water, is something to be respected because there's undercurrents, there's riptides, there's all of these things. And even an Olympic swimmer, if you put them out in our whitewater, they wouldn't be there for long without some sort of flotation device. So it's really important to have them.
So what should be the plan? Because, of course, you know, people have pool parties all summer long. And what does, you know, and you want to have, you know, supervision. What does active supervision though really look like? Because people have their phones and you know they're watching, but you know not necessarily actively.
So Safe Kids advocates for something called a water watcher. Now that doesn't mean that you don't care about your child or you're not paying attention, but we as humans get very busy talking and meeting new friends and getting the chit chat. So what you do is you assign someone to be the water watcher, and what they're assigned to the pool, eyes only, no phones, no conversations, eyes on the pool for whatever time that you want to say, like 30 minutes. And what we suggest is they actually wear a lanyard that says water watcher. So they're at the pool, they're watching the pool, that's their job 100%. Then I pass it off to you, you're next. And then, you know, you can still talk and still watch your child, but you have a dedicated water watcher. And that is a great way to keep eyes on the pool at all times.
Is there a highest risk moment for drowning? And if so, why do adults miss that moment?
I think the highest risk is the fact that kids can get away from us very fast. Supervision is key, but also I always say preparation is key. So let's say you're going to go picnic near the water at the river, and you know your child can't swim. That life jacket needs to go on their back the minute you get out of the car. Like it needs to be the first thing you do. So that way, if they do venture to the water, they at least have a chance, right? So that's the key, is that you want to make sure that you have strong supervision and that you prepare. And that, you know, the drowning happens so fast. I mean, a child can drown in the bathtub. It doesn't have to be in a river or a pool. I mean, they can drown in a bucket of water. I mean, it's teaspoons, what they tell us you can drown. So it's really important to know this has to be taken very serious.
Absolutely. And Pam, so what are the must-know CPR or emergency steps for caregivers after someone has gone under?
So I think the biggest thing for families is to go ahead and take a CPR course. You need to know how to conduct CPR. I will tell you, I've had to administer CPR to my child when she was little. And parents giving CPR to their kids, man, that's not a good scenario. I did it, but man, I tell you, it's a tough thing because you're so emotionally charged. So even if you could, we had a neighbor come over and she was able to do it much better than me, even though I was right there, just because, you know, you were so upset. So, but learning CPR is going to be the difference between making it or not sometimes. So that's the first line of defense is to learn that. And they'll teach what is the latest standards between how many breaths and how many compressions. How do you alternate between the compressions and breaths for a child versus an adult? And so that you give your child that fighting chance between when you're doing that and when help arrives.
Yeah.
So that's the key. And if you don't know how to conduct CPR, then you're at the, you're at the will of the mercy of the gods, so to speak.
Yeah. Be aware. Stay focused on what's happening in and around the whatever water you may be in.
Absolutely.
So important. Well, we are talking summer safety with Safe Kids Director Pam Fair, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the heat, which again, we have to deal with it all summer, but it certainly can be dangerous. So we'll look at that when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Today we are talking about summer safety, and of course we are in the South. We're with Pam Fair. She's the director of Safe Kids Columbus at Piedmont Columbus. We're in the South, and the heat is something we cannot avoid, and it can be extremely dangerous. Let's talk about that, Pam, specifically hot cars and how dangerous it is to leave a child in a parked car for a short amount of time. How quickly can that become lethal?
So for kids, it's much higher of a risk than it is for adults, because a child's body will heat up 3 times faster than an adult's. Yeah. And in some cases, for some kids, even higher than that.
Wow.
So even if you're in the car with the child and it's a hot car, that doesn't matter. Like, you cannot leave a kid in a hot car for any length of time, because their body cannot handle that heat. It cannot cool itself like an adult body can.
Yeah, you might not feel like you're overheated, but your child sitting in the parked car with you might be becoming overheated. That's
correct. And so another thing that we like to tell parents is not to leave your child in a hot car, not even for a minute, because we're busy, our minds are busy. And there are multiple ways that can happen. Like, a child can be intentionally left in the car or knowingly left because I'm just going to run the groceries in because he's asleep in his car seat. I don't want to wake the bear till I get the groceries in.
Right.
And then you get inside and you get distracted, and then they're out there way too long. Yeah. Also, kids can gain access to a car, Barbara, on their own. So if you leave your car unlocked and kids are allowed to play in or around cars, they get in, they can't get out. So we always say, teach your child to know how to use the horn. So if they get in the car, we don't want to tell them if you're in the car, but just how to use the horn and tell them it's for an emergency, they can actually beep the horn. So just trying to get them out and not leaving them there in the first place.
And what kind of numbers have we seen as far as how many children have died in hot cars in Georgia?
Sure. So in Georgia, since we started tracking this in the 90s, we have had 45 deaths in Georgia. Now, our neighbor to the south in Florida, they've had 118. They have a lot more visitors, coming through Florida, perhaps, than we do sometimes. But those numbers are staggering, and even one child's death is too many in this scenario.
And certainly every year it seems like we've got in the news, a child dying in a hot car. Let's talk about, though, Pam, outside of that, just being out in the heat and kids out in the heat, what are some of the early signs of heat exhaustion, heat stroke? What should parents be looking for?
So you could maybe headache, nausea, they become a little bit lethargic. They just don't have the ability to move about. You see their energy is just wiped out. But then the next big sign is if they stop sweating, you need to definitely seek medical attention immediately.
And are there some kids that are more at risk than others for becoming overheated quicker?
Absolutely. So if your child has a special health need, that's going to increase their risk. Absolutely. So if your child's on any certain medications, and the fact that you also have to make sure you're hydrating your child when they're outside, even if they're what you would consider the healthiest child ever. They need to hydrate more when they're outside, and perhaps spend, increments, of time out there, and not just out there for a whole afternoon.
Well, that
in
was
this heat.
My question. How should you regulate that time, the playtime in the summer versus other times of the year?
Absolutely. So if they're in that full sun, this Georgia heat that we have, keep them out there, let them play for what your child. So you would have to just sort of watch your child. Once they've had whatever you would consider an amount of time, let's say 20, 30 minutes, whatever that may be, if you see them starting to succumb to the heat, they're overly hot, they're sweating, they're slowing down, then maybe take a time to cool off, hydrate, and then go back at it again later. Yeah. So that's the key. It's just really respecting that heat, because it can get you fast. And so the kids are much more susceptible.
And a lot of schools will have different activities over the summer, like band practice and football practice and different whatever sports practices. What should those kinds of organizations keep in mind as far as, how much time they have the kids out in the heat and regulating that as well?
I think part of it is acclimating to our heat, and that's not a bad thing, is to try to help kids acclimate, because they will be out there during sports games. But I think parents should absolutely work with their physician to determine what is the best way to hydrate their child if they're going to be on a sports field or in the band or whatever that may be for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And I think they absolutely need to be empowered to communicate, be it to their coach or their band leader or whoever that may be, their summer camp leader. I'm way too hot. I don't feel well. I need to get out of the heat. They need to be empowered to go ahead and say that before they get into trouble.
Are there red flags, Pam, that parents, coaches, band leaders should be looking for to know that it is time now to stop and call 911?
Absolutely. When they begin to become, they're not using their emotions. They're really, let me see here, what's the best way to say? They become lethargic. They stop sweating. They stop the movement. They're kind of not making a lot of sense. Headache, nausea, all of those things. It's time to go ahead and pull that trigger and say, let's go ahead and contact medical professionals and make sure that we're not experiencing some sort of heat stroke.
It's like everything we've talked about, all the different awareness is the key. It's just watching and noticing things.
And there's no shame in seeking shade. I mean, if you have to, if you feel yourself or you think your child's getting too hot, seek shade, seek indoors, cool off, and then go back at it again. That's the thing. Don't push yourself beyond your limits.
Yeah. You brought a couple other things, Pam, that I want to talk about. Some other issues that also happen all year round, but in the summer, it seems like we see more of these things with kids. Talk about the button batteries and the dangers of that.
So this is a button battery. We find these batteries in everything. They're in remotes, key fobs, tea lights, books. I mean, button batteries are everywhere. And so these are great, they're convenient, they're small, but they are also a tremendous hazard for children. If your toddler or your child were to get this in their mouth and swallow it, you have about an hour or less to get your child to medical attention and to get that removed. If it's not removed, because the esophagus squeezes up against this battery, it could activate the battery, and the heat of it could sever the esophagus.
Wow.
And if that happens, you've got to. Your time is against you.
Right.
And so if this happens, this child could not be eating by mouth for a very long time, if ever.
Right.
So this is a serious issue. And so this is another thing that is so important, that if you have them in your home, that you keep them locked up and out of sight. Right. And, don't let your child play with remotes and key fobs and things like that, especially toddlers who they discover things with their mouth. They're going to put things right in their mouth.
Absolutely.
So that's a great thing to keep locked away.
And you've got a gun lock there too. In the summertime, more kids are around in the house, maybe looking at things they should not be, and you need those locks.
Absolutely. And Barbara, this is one of the things that we're empowering parents to begin to do. I know when my child was little, I didn't do this, but I wish I would have.
Yeah.
But now we're encouraging them to ask. So if your child's going to go play at someone's home, sometimes we'll say he has an allergy, or, you begin to go over, do you have pets? We ask questions, but we don't ask about a weapon.
Right.
So it's a great thing to say, and just go ahead and preface it by saying, my child's very curious, he likes to explore, or she really likes to get into things, so we want to know, how do you store your weapons?
Yeah.
And make sure you're happy with that before your child visits.
Oh, such good advice on all of these topics, ma'am. You've got some sunscreen over there. Make sure you're wearing the sunscreen this summer. Everything that we should be doing to make sure our families are safe. Great information.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. I've been talking with Pam Fair. She's the Director of Safe Kids Columbus at Piedmont Columbus Regional. Thanks for all the tips. We'll have more on our website, WTVM.com. That is going to do it for us today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you next time on The Record. Stay safe this summer.